This is Kevin Warren, the Big Ten Commissioner. Paul, I think you shared that with us earlier. Big Ten Commissioner Kevin Warren and ACC Commissioner Mike Oresco, remember him? The AAC, the American Conference, told Brett McMurphy they're open to having both first round and quarterfinal round games on campus sites in the 12-team playoff that will start in 2024. Warren said it would be wonderful. Quarterfinals are set for bowls in 24-25. The earliest campus sites would be in 2026.
Yeah. Well, I remember I did a top 5 about this, and we had a really discussion about more home playoff games. And at first, the thought of it is like, well, I mean, there's just going to be that because of the bowls. But my point was when the conferences realized that some of their big brands, like, for example, this year, if the 12-team playoff happened this year, Ohio State would get a home playoff game, right? In the first round. Michigan would not.
That's a great point.
You're going to tell the Big Ten that they could have 2 of those possibly based on the next week in the quarterfinals? And you're also telling the top 4 teams that, no, you don't get to host a home playoff game. You got the bye week, and it's either or. Now, look, I'm all for compromise and being either or, but that's 100,000-seat stadiums in a lot of instances that are not going to be filled.
But if you're not going to play in the first round, you're getting a bye. So you're saying they should get a bye and then host the next round?
I'm not saying that.
No,
I'm saying that
it's
they
at
will.
Least something they'll discuss.
I'm saying that they will say that because they will say, well, hey, here, I'll give you the example of Michigan, who can put more people in this thing and sell more tickets than this at this locale.
Or a bowl game in Memphis.
Yeah, exactly. Or you're going to have those different neutral site games. I think the train will eventually pull into that station of doing those first 2 rounds there, and they'll figure out something else with the bowls.
It would be great for fans. Now, again, the traveling fans will still, if they win the first game, have to go on the road again the second game. But, Craig, your thoughts? I'm all for the campus sites. I really am. I know the bowl games, lobbyists, the money involved, they've been fighting for this for years and years. I don't know really. I mean, just off the top of my head, it wouldn't bother me at all.
I mean, off the top of my head, the first thing I think of is if you're Kevin Warren, who are you wanting to succeed? You're wanting the Big Ten teams, right? So would you rather see Michigan, which and don't take it as like, I know Michigan would beat most anybody right now, but let's say you've got Michigan, for example, or anybody else you want to put in there, and they're going to be hosting Texas in the first round. Would you rather go play that game in Arlington or Atlanta?
Sure.
Or do you want the Longhorns in the snow in Ann Arbor in December? I want their ass at home. That's where I want them. I want them at the big house, right? I mean, that's a no-brainer to me. I think the more home games, the merrier. I think that's the purity of college football, not these big, glossy NFL stadiums. I think those have their place for certain sites. I think those have their place for certain, like a playoff game, the final, certainly. But I think in terms of expanding and, just doing what's best for fans, even though, yes, the visiting fans will have to travel, but that's happening regardless. I'd rather see it, Texas fans have to go to the big house, or Michigan fans have to go play at the Coliseum, or that versus go play at the Rams Stadium. Give me that all day. Give me that all day over the NFL option. And I'm all for that, and I'm all for it being both rounds. The whole thing, I still see the back and forth on playoff expansion, and that's never going to end or not. But here's the deal, folks. Whether you like the format or not, doesn't matter. It's happening. So whether you think 4 is superior, or whether you think 16's the best, or you think like Mike Leach, it should be March Madness, and Mike Leach thinks that just because Washington State would have a chance to always get in there. But regardless of where you stand, it is what it is. It's a 12-team playoff now, and it's not changing for the foreseeable future. So that's what it's going to be. And, there are definitely some downsides to it, no doubt about it. But I think one of the upsides to it is, like, are we really not going to be excited to see these games? Like, the closer we get to it, I'm like amped up about seeing a first round matchup that could feature Kansas State hosting UCLA for a spot at the next round to go face Alabama or whatever. Like, I'm all on board with that. I understand, again, there are downsides. It's the fan traveling an extra couple of games if you get to that point. It's also the wear and tear, that you worry about. But then again, the NFL's adding games too. So if this goes to the part of the argument where, well, the players are getting paid now, and the more games, the more money flowing, and guarantee you that money's not going to keep getting siphoned off from the players at this point. That's going to go into their pockets as well, and that will be all figured out and corrected and will be on the up and up, just because it's too much in the focus right now. So, yeah, I'm all on board with the first 2 rounds being at home sites.
Andy Everett will join us at UTSA on the Frank Harris decision. Paul?
Yeah. I think also, if you're Kevin Warren, you're also seeing out what's the potential argument among the schools year to year in this thing. And so again, on the case of Michigan and Ohio State, I'll just say it. If I was Michigan and I beat Ohio State, and even though I got the bye, I'm still greedy ass Michigan, right? I want everything that I can get. I'm not.
In this day and age, everybody does get whatever they want.
Exactly. So if I'm Kevin Warren, instead of having to sift through that argument, right, and say, well, this is what we agreed to, and you're not the only one who suffers here. Clemson didn't get to do this either this year, or USC or whoever. Michigan's not going to care about that. They only care about Michigan, right? So if you give more home playoff sites, then you have that.
It's interesting that Kevin Warren is the one with the opinion about now going forward with the expanded playoff when he was one who tried to shut it down.
Yeah, because he wanted it to be at his advantage.
Yeah,
That's why he's Kevin Warren.
I agree, but it's still ironic that
he did that before they added USC and UCLA, and before they potentially add whoever else they might potentially add in the future. So, yeah, I mean, he played it well. You got to give him credit for doing well on the chessboard, along with Sankey and everybody else who ultimately wanted it to get to this point. But, yeah, you looked at the playoff this year. How close was that to being 2 SEC and 2 Big Ten teams, guys? That was very close to being 2 SEC and 2 Big Ten. So as much as you're like, oh, that'll never happen, or we'll avoid that, I mean, those guys see the dollar signs. That's why they're in the positions that they're in, and he knew what he was doing, and so kudos to him. And, it's going to be a Big Ten heavy and an SEC heavy world like it pretty much has been for the last 20 years. So I don't know how much changes there, but there's not going to be as many roadblocks to the TCUs of the world or potentially a K-State in this type of format this year of not getting, that opportunity. So I know it's never going to be a unanimously accepted thing, but I like the home sites.
I do too. I would love to see that happen for as long as possible. So think about all the stories from today.